This is the new Zero carry-on from MVST. It has a pretty unique rivet-less design that really in the world of aluminum luggage I've only seen with DB Journey, and I believe they pioneered this, and it also costs about half as much. It's got a wide handle design and all in all more sleek minimal line, so it's a more subtle unassuming version compared to the Trevo, which is their more popular option. On this video I'm going to talk about my favorite things about it, point out some nitpicks, show you the inside, walk you through it, pack it out, and then ultimately share some thoughts on how it compares against the Trevo, which one I would personally go with and why, and also share some thoughts on holistically aluminum suitcases. In what scenarios does it make sense to actually get one versus getting something like a soft shell or polycarbonate. So let's get into it. Now, my favorite things about it are the subtle minimal design. The latches are very satisfying. And then the wide handle design I like, but mixed feelings. I'll get into that right now. Now, first and foremost is the look. And while obviously this is very much a personal subjective thing, to me, I feel like you buy an aluminum suitcase for the look and the feel more than anything, because beyond the fact that they typically come with latches, a zipperless design, which you can also find in polycarbonate suitcases, they're never going to be high on my list when it comes to practicality. They're heavier, they're rigid, so there's no malleability. You have to be really precise with how you pack them. And then they dent and scratch easily, which for me, I don't mind the scratching. I don't mind light denting, but if you spend even on the lower end, $400 or $500 is kind of the entry point for aluminum suitcases. If you're getting on a plane, it's full, they force you to check this thing in, there's a decent chance that you're gonna get it back and be like, damn, that is a horrific dent. So you have to really like the look of the aluminum suitcase. And a lot of what makes this one unique and special is that it has a rivetless design. I imagine there's a much more complex manufacturing process to accomplish this, hence the steeper price tag. But it looks super sleek. I think aluminum suitcases draw more attention than any other kind of suitcase, and they're more popular one, the Trevo. It's still a really cool looking suitcase, a lot more Rimowa-esque, but I am one that identifies with products that are more quietly luxurious. I do kind of get a kick out of someone like spotting something and being like, damn, that's nice, but in a tasteful way. This to me is maybe a little bit too loud for my preference, whereas this one I think strikes a really nice balance. Second thing that I really like about this one is just the latch design. There's some latch designs with aluminum suitcases, like for example with the Trevo, where the buckles are, you have to do a little bit of MacGyverage to make it work, and especially when they get full, you have to do a little hook and push, which can be satisfying. But with this guy, it's literally just, you literally just push these two, and that sound and that little vibration, like dampening that you get, is awesome. But yeah, it's just, there's no MacGyverage. It's a cleaner, more consistent experience, which I really like. And then lastly, which this part candidly I have mixed feelings about, is the grab handle, and I'll explain why now. Now, you get a wider grab handle. This is something that, I don't know if Level 8 was the one that pioneered this, but I know they're like known for this. And I'm a big fan of the wider grab handle with a check luggage for two reasons. One, when it's wider, you just get more stability, more leverage with a suitcase. And then secondly, the handle itself goes into the sides rather than down the middle. So it just makes the packing area, all in all, a more usable volume. I think for anyone that lives in an urban place where they're commuting to the airport, where they have to like walk on the streets for a decently extended period of time before getting on a bus, train, subway, etc., or you travel a lot to places like that, but you don't want to carry things on your back, you still prefer a suitcase, there's definitely an added bonus with that stability factor with a suitcase having that wide grab handle design. But for me, and this is why I didn't include it as a nitpick, but it's mixed feelings, is that I am huge on luggage pass-throughs on backpacks. Like my go-to travel system for the past few years has really been an 18 to 24 liter backpack that I can use as a personal item under the seat. And then I get to the airport and I just put it on the suitcase. So I really appreciate the wide handle on checked luggage where I'm not using the pass-through. But for carry-ons, just given the choice, I would still prefer that. So with that being said, they have a third aluminum suitcase, which is their space. I have not tried that one, but I feel like that would be the best of both worlds for me, in that you get a more sleek, minimal design, but you don't get the wide handle. I'd have to see it in person, but I feel like that would probably be the one that I would prefer out of their collection. Now, as far as the nitpicks go, the three main ones are the hinges, the material that they're using. Secondly, I've experienced some fabric protrusion from the liner that I'll talk about. And then just lastly, the grab handles themselves are intentionally tight, but they're still tight, and I'll talk about that right now. But I would say the main one is the hinges on the back. I'm sure that there's like metal inside at some point, but like the hinges themselves, like this is like, whether it's like a plastic coating, but it just genuinely doesn't feel premium at all. They're also only using 2 hinges instead of 3. And I feel like externally everywhere else, like the suitcase, like the build quality is solid relative to its price point for sure. But it's, you know, like little things like this can, for me, detract from the overall elevated premium look that they're going for. And another reason why it's a nitpick for me is like this one is more expensive than the Treva, and I know a lot of it has to do with the manufacturing costs of creating a fully rivet-less design. But even still, you know, if you look at this one, only 2 hinges, you don't need 3, 2's fine, but they're using aluminum and it just looks and feels significantly nicer. Second nitpick, and it might be like a quality control thing with this one specifically, or just the design itself, but I have noticed that the fabric from like the liner divider here, there's excess fabric, it feels like. And again, it could be just this specific unit. And of course now it's not happening, but there it is. It's kind of subtle, but some of the fabric just gets caught here and then it just flaps out. I've opened and closed it a bunch, and I would say probably like 30% of the time it ends up happening, and it's just like a little bit of excess of fabric that tucks out. And then lastly is the handles themselves. Like, this isn't super unusual with these types of handles where it's like, of course you want them to not protrude out when you're not using them, but when you stick your hand in there, there's like a good bit of pressure, so you have to like pull it a decent bit. My wife has like pretty small hands, like thinner fingers. She also, when she was like using it, she felt the same way. And while it's not a big deal, like the handles themselves, they're using like a vegan leather. It's got a nice structure / padding to it. But when you think about where you're interacting with the suitcase, it's mainly the luggage handle and the grab handles themselves. Let me walk you through it. The front and the back look pretty much identical, other than the fact that the luggage handle is here. Sometimes I'm just like, wait, where's the front? Where's the back? So you can see it from the top. It's kind of nice that it like sits flush, but it curves in. Push it out, and then you've got a total of 4 different height settings. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then clicks into place. They have kind of like a vegan leather with plastic on the bottom For the grab handles, like I mentioned in the nitpicks, there's a lot of tension there, which does keep it flush, and it's functional in that sense, but it's also creates a bit of pressure on your fingers when you're grabbing it. You'll see throughout just that rivet-less design. On the back part, you have these plastic stoppers so that you're not resting it purely on the aluminum. 2 hinges that I already talked about. And then the wheels, these are like a patented tri-bearing system. They're really, really smooth. I definitely am a fan of MVST's wheels. And then you'll see on the bottom, you have a bit of plastic just to provide the base with a little bit of protection. The latch mechanism, really easy. You just push those 2 buttons, and it opens. And as you can see, clicks in really nicely as well. So yeah, kind of like this dolphin gray liner, logo embossed, zipper pulls, and then you have some organization here, here, and here. But let me pack it out. This is pretty much kind of like an indefinite travel system. And this is assuming I'd be going somewhere where it's like chilly. I'm gonna need layers so that you can get a sense of what comfortably fits in here. Now keep in mind that because of this wide handle, it's completely flat in the middle, but then the handles themselves are here, so you get less width, but more just like usable volume there. Here's a little bag that I just use as a hamper when I'm out there. 1 pair of shorts. An extra pair of pants. 2 overshirts, because I pretty much live in overshirts. So I can layer, dress up, dress down, and just throw some more socks inside the shoes as well. And now I personally wouldn't put my laptop here because that's just not the way I travel. But this is a 14-inch MacBook Air, just so you can see how that fits comfortably in there. And then on the other side, I've got in this packing cube 8 t-shirts, 1 for sleeping in, and then just about 1 per day. An extra pair of shoes. Little sweater action. That's it. So final thoughts. MVST is a brand that's made a name for itself, creating aluminum suitcases at a more cost-effective price point. Even though they're $400, $450, which I get for a lot of people is a lot of money for a suitcase. But relative to other options on the market, they don't get much cheaper than this. There's the Quince one that's like $275. I'm like very curious about it. They're using Hinomoto wheels, and yeah, accomplishing that at that price point is super impressive. You have Noble that I've heard mixed things about, Level 8. They primarily make polycarbonate suitcases, but their Gibraltar I recently reviewed and also was very impressed. But if you've come to terms that you're like, I need to have an aluminum suitcase, I don't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money on one. You want something that sleek, modern, looks a little bit different. The rivet-less design really helps create this awesome design language. You don't need to put your backpack, or at least like use a luggage pass-through, like maybe use a duffel or a tote and you could just rest it on top of this. And perhaps you live in a city, right, where getting to the airport means like walking down the street, taking a bus, train, subway, whatever. or you travel to a lot of places where you're doing that in between and you like the idea of having wide handles to provide you with that additional stability, then I think it's a fantastic choice. My main call outs really are just the hinges that feel like plasticky. They don't match the level of build quality of the rest of the suitcase. And then again, it might be just like a quality control issue, but just finding that the liner fabric tends to get caught here and protrude a little bit outside of the suitcase. If you're trying to decide between this and the Treva, in the end of the day, I would say just pick the one that you like the look of. I know it's like a cop out, but at the same time, you're buying aluminum suitcases for that timeless look and feel. Unless you're carrying like super expensive camera equipment inside your suitcase and you need that additional layer of security protection, there's just more practical suitcases out there. They're also a lot more cost effective when you're not taking the aluminum route. Keep in mind, when you're getting an aluminum suitcase, they scratch and dent easily. That's part of the experience. So if you're not going to embrace it, maybe don't get an aluminum suitcase. And they're also heavier, right? So if you live in a part of the world where they're actually weighing your carry-on items, which candidly in the US, it's something that I have yet to experience, but I know in a lot of countries, like in Asia, for example, that's becoming more and more common. Maybe don't go aluminum, especially if you're an overpacker, right? Beyond the weight limitations, it's a material that's not expandable, so you're really limited to the constraints of the volume in here. Between the two, I mean, like really, without seeing, I would say like my personal go-to of the MVST lineup is their space, because it's best of both worlds. You get that rivet-less design, looks a little bit different, but the lines are kind of similar. Whereas with the Treva, I think a lot of people appreciate it more, but you have this like carbon fiber-ish texture weave going on. It's more of like a pattern. It also looks a lot more like a Ramo, and so I personally don't like to draw too much attention when I'm traveling, but if you don't care and you just like love the look of it, go with that one. The beauty of the space is that you get a grab handle that you can use a backpack like a luggage pass-through on, whereas this, you get the wide handle design. I think aesthetically out of the three, this is my favorite, as long as I forget about those hinges. And then I would say the last consideration is that you get compression on one side of this one. So if you're still like kind of split between the two and you're kind of like a chronic overpacker, I do find that I don't really need compressibility in my carry-ons, typically speaking, but with an aluminum suitcase, I do value it a bit more. Helps just keep things tighter and make it so that when you close it, since you're not dealing with a zipper, just a more seamless experience. So other than that, best of luck. Cheers.